Released in 2021, this $1,500 Oppo Find X3 has been reduced to a mangled mess after major damage. Damage so bad the outer layers of the display are gone and the frame is snapped. Now in several pieces and without a back panel or screws after a failed repair attempt. With the phone, I did receive a bag of screws and parts, some of which aren't even from this phone, suggesting its last owner may have failed to repair several other devices. I purchased this phone for just 38 Aussie dollars, 97.5% off its original purchase price. On the used market, this year-old phone is selling for around $700, so I got quite the deal. Sent to me in an envelope with little padding, it couldn't have been sent any cheaper. I guess the seller had to recoup some of that loss somehow. I'm just glad the battery wasn't punctured as a result. There isn't a back panel or any screws holding it together, so the phone practically just falls apart. After disconnecting the battery, I can attach a new display to test the phone. This display fits the Oppo X3, X3 Pro, and OnePlus 9 Pro. I'll loosely attach this screen to see whether this phone is even worth saving. With the charger connected, you can see it spring into life. After charging it up a bit, we can see the lock screen. To get this phone back into a usable state, we're of course going to need some new parts, including a new display, mid-frame, and rear glass. We're also going to need a quality toolkit to get the job done, and that's where long-time channel sponsor iFixit comes in, with a toolkit for every fixer's needs. Whether a do-it-all kit like the ProTech or something small for everyday carry, you can get yours at ifixit.com/HughJeffries and receive 20% off your purchase on November 21st with free shipping on orders over $65 using code CELEBRATE. Initially, I purchased just the display as I thought I could save about $100 by replacing it without the frame. What the listing pictures didn't show was that the frame was cracked, meaning I'd have to replace it anyway. Having already received the display before the phone, I now have some extra work to do. I guess we'll see at the end whether this pays off. As we're replacing the frame of the phone, I'll need to transfer everything from the old housing over to the new one. On most Android phones this isn't a big deal, but this phone seems to already have a few more pieces than some of the other Androids I've repaired. Once the motherboard is free, we can get a closer look at it. This Oppo X3 Pro is powered by a Snapdragon 888 processor with 12GB of RAM and 256GB of storage. But with it out of place, we now have access to plenty of other smaller bits that need to come out, including a small piece of rubber, the earpiece, and front camera bracket, which has been glued into place. Also here is the proximity sensor. It too can be removed, using some alcohol to aid the process. Next to come out is the 2250 mAh battery, which conveniently features 2 pull tabs, and unlike most, they actually work. Not bad, Oppo. Not bad at all. The battery sits in a plastic wrap that somehow makes this not painful to pull out. I'll reuse the plastic piece so I can reattach the battery later on. Under the battery are 2 cables, one that connects to the daughter board and the other that houses the USB-C port. On the flip side, I'll need to harvest the earpiece mesh, proximity sensor deflection plastic, and the heatsink from under what remains of the old screen. Of course, if you buy a screen with the frame already attached, you wouldn't have to do this. The heatsink is hiding under a graphite sheet, which wasn't going to come out in one piece. To get it out of place, you'll first have to remove the tape from the back of it before prying it out, being careful not to bend it or puncture it in the process. There's a small amount of adhesive up at the top, so I'll use an iFixit Jimmy tool to carefully maneuver it out of place. The most painful part of this process is one of the last things we have to get out, the buttons. The actual electrical component was easy enough, but the mechanical metal buttons that protrude out the side of the device was a totally different story. My replacement frame didn't come with any buttons installed, so I need to reuse these ones. It took me quite a while to realize just how to get them out. There's two plastic retaining clips either side that need to be pried out in a certain way to release the button. Not only are they really small and fiddly, but if you happen to get too much force on one while trying to pry it out, it could go flying into the next galaxy, never to be seen again. With the buttons free, there's just a few more things left, such as the grills for the microphone and speaker, as well as the SIM eject pin. With that, we've completely disassembled the Oppo Find X3 Pro. Definitely a bit more involved than some Android phones, but that's largely due to the fact that I'm replacing both the display and frame separately. If you're doing this yourself, I'd highly recommend getting a fully complete display and frame assembly. The replacement mid-frame was $50, and that was $20 less than the one I found a few weeks prior. Its high price is likely because this is a fairly new phone, but having already purchased a new screen, I couldn't back out of the repair. So it's time we get this phone reassembled, starting with all the smaller pieces first. While reassembling the buttons, you can see how the retaining clips work. A small cutout locks the post of the button inside the frame, preventing it from falling out. The power button went in without a problem, but the volume buttons, well, that was another story. After I fitted them, I noticed the buttons wouldn't click at all and were in fact jammed. Upon pulling them back out, you can see they're bent. The old frame has molded these buttons into a deformed shape, so using some pliers I could hit them back into place, resolving the issue. After I've positioned the proximity sensor, it's time to get the new display attached. This one cost $285, $120 less than if I got the option that came attached to the frame, so you can see why this was a compelling option. But after finding the phone with more damage than first thought, I had to buy the frame anyway, so the difference worked out to be only $50. One of the reasons the screen was so much more with the frame attached is that the seller is taking the responsibility to attach the screen properly. If you take the route of installing it yourself and break it, you're left liable, not the seller, meaning it's more risky to attach the screen yourself. After all, you only have one shot at it. Misalign it, or forget to attach the heatsink and you'll destroy it trying to get it back off. I've even added some extra liquid adhesive beneath just to really make sure the screen isn't going anywhere. After I've lined it up correctly, I can press it firmly down into place. Back inside the phone, we still have our work cut out for us. Down the lower section, I'll attach the vibration motor and fingerprint reader before the earpiece and camera bracket up top. The motherboard is next, and it'll need its old thermal paste cleaned off and some new stuff reapplied. Once it's in its position, I can work on getting the two antenna wires fastened to the side of the housing, reinstalling the original tape over top. Of course, I can't forget about the USB-C cable or interconnect cable for the daughter board. These will need to go in before I can screw any of the bottom components in place. Connecting up all the flex cables, this phone is starting to take shape, but what it really needs is some screws. Amongst the ones included was an earpiece for an iPhone. While many screws look to have come from a Samsung, some of these definitely come from this Oppo. The question is, which ones? Thankfully, one was labelled with Oppo branding, so I was easily able to sort out which screws I needed. This phone has been quite the jigsaw puzzle, but it seems I'm putting all the pieces in the right order. Once I fastened the lower section in, there were two smaller screws I used to secure the motherboard, before the remaining longer screws were used for the wireless charging module. With that, it's finally come time to see if this phone works after all our work. I want to test it before attaching the back panel. As the phone still has the previous owner's information on it, I'll wipe the phone and set it up again. On the Windows 98 login screen, when prompted for a user password, you could click cancel instead and it would log you in anyway. Why am I mentioning this? Well, this phone wants its last used password, even after reset. This is what Google calls reset protection, and I'm going full Windows 98 and just clicking cancel. Watch, as it just lets me in anyway. Beautiful. The final thing left to do is attach the rear panel. Before I can do that, I need to clean up the old camera lens and flash assembly so that it can be glued onto the back of the new glass panel. As I didn't have the original back, I made some assumptions on the color. As it turns out, it wasn't black but actually a grey color, meaning my replacement isn't what the phone had originally, but it's better than what it had before, which was nothing. Removing the glass from this part was by no means an easy process, but once I had the glass and adhesive residue removed, I could apply some fresh liquid adhesive and get it attached to the new back. After cleaning the internals of the phone from glue residue and any dust from the camera lenses, it's time to attach the back. I'll add 2 additional strips of adhesive before connecting the flex cable and bracket for the flash. Proceeding, I can remove all the plastic protective film from my installed adhesive and the adhesive running around the perimeter of the new glass panel. Then I can line the 2 halves up and firmly press the back panel into place. After I reinstall the SIM card tray, the last thing left to do is remove the plastic protective film. And we're done. So this is it, a restored Oppo Find X3 Pro. Cost total $393, including the device itself. That makes this the cheapest Oppo Find X3 Pro. If you can find a good deal on a broken phone, even with some pricey parts, you still can come out with a fantastic deal if you're willing to take the chance and put in the time fixing it. And on that note, this has been a Hugh Jeffries video. If you like what you saw, consider subscribing and check out the phone restoration playlist for more videos just like this one. And if you're looking for any used devices, be sure to check out my online store, link for which is down in the description. That's all for this video, and I'll catch you guys next time.